Thanks for checking. All right, let's kick things off. We've got 6 remote and 8-ish here. It's close to the RSVPs. So this one's going to be a short one, just 30 minutes. We're going to be talking about how to navigate the CLI, the shell. So the scope of this presentation is just the basics. Really just to kind of get you a little bit more comfortable than maybe you have been. If you've used the shell to start up our servers or set up one of our projects. Make a symlink, that kind of a thing. This presentation is intended to just kind of get you comfortable moving around the CLI, so that you look a little bit more comfortable, or you feel a little bit more comfortable as you're doing it. There's a lot to be said about customizing your shell environment and really efficiently, granularly getting around the file system. And we're not going to talk about that. That's like a good follow-up presentation to this for more advanced stuff. So let's start with how to do things on the shell that you already know how to do in every other environment that uses a GUI that you're used to. So you're just going to have to kind of commit these to memory. So Control-A is home. So say like you've got a really long command here, right? Let's say, So you've got this long command line. If you press Control, let's say. I'm going to do this. So I usually use the Z shell. So I'm going to start up Bash on the left-hand terminal here. All right. So if you press Control-A, that'll go to the beginning of the line. If you press Control-E, that will take you to the end of the line. So just the home key and the end key, same as you're already familiar with. But that's a nice way to not have to say, type some really long command like the one that starts up our Ruby servers and then use your arrow keys to get all the way back to the beginning. So just a quick way to jump around. Sorry, I'll get used to that. Let's see. All right. Next, Control-W will delete the previous word. This is going to be a little bit more important for reasons that we'll get to. So say like I want to do that, right? That's just a nice way to kind of go back incrementally. And it's one of those ones that I use day in, day out. There's a lot of shortcuts. These are kind of Emacs-esque key bindings with the default bash. So you can get pretty crazy here, and we're just going to cover, like I said, some of the basics. So deleting a word is one that I use frequently, and then deleting a line. In Emacs parlance, this is killing a word or killing a line. So, for example, I can press Control-U to delete everything and just get back to the beginning of the line. Now you can do something similar with Control-C. So say like you've got something like that, and you can just Control-C out of it. But Control-U is a little useful for this next topic, which is you can get that back with Control-Y. Control-Y is paste. So in Emacs or in Vim parlance, if you kill something, if you delete something, it puts it into kind of a buffer of things that you've deleted, and so you can paste them back. So it's kind of like cutting and pasting, except you can you've got this kind of rolling ring. But just for the most recent and the previous one. So the reason this would be useful is, say like you've typed out something that's really long, like the command to start up our Ruby service, for example, and then you realize, I'm in the wrong directory, or I need to make some other change before I run that. You can Control-U that, CD to wherever it is you need to go, and then Control-Y it, and you get it right back. So that's a nice kind of time saver. All right. So now let's talk about navigating around the file system. There's not a lot to be said here, but we're going to talk a bit about how to kind of polish this up. Obviously, CD with no arguments will take you to your home directory. So you can see I'm currently in this MX directory. If I CD, now I'm in my home directory. But if I do cd and a dash, that'll take me back to the previous directory that I was. So it toggles between these two environment variables, old print working directory and the current print working directory. So if I do that, you can see where I was. And there's these two environment variables that track that, pwd and old pwd. And you can actually use these. So say like I do jump over to the let's see, yeah, to the MX directory. But I wanted something out of my home directory. I could do old print working directory, and that now I've got everything that's there. So that's a nice way to avoid having to cd around too much, right? Like oftentimes as you're first getting used to the shell, you'll like cd to a place and do an ls, and then you'll cd to another place and do an ls, and then you'll need to do something where you were, and so you'll cd back and do the thing, and then you'll cd back again. So the fewer times you can change directories, the faster things are going to go, generally speaking. And being able to toggle between two directories like this is a great way to just kind of have 2 points. I'm going to do work here, and I'm going to do work here, and we'll talk about completion to polish that a little bit more. So I think everybody knows, but if you say that you are in some directory like this, you can cd ... to go up one directory, and you can do that. Say like we go back to MX, so we're in the MX directory. We can do cd ... /cd ... is just a Unixism for one directory up. So I went 2 directories up. And there's nice ways to, there's nice kind of value adds. If we ever get to the advanced tutorial, for example, we could do things like this that help you navigate around the file system a lot faster. So say we do source MX, Robinhood, coverage, say, we're in some directory. There's like nice aliases that say, let you do something like that, right? Real quickly and just jump around the file system. But again, not this topic. Not today's topic. And one bonus tip is the same thing can be done in Git. You can toggle between 2 branches if you do a git checkout dash. And it'll just toggle between the 2 most recent branches, which is a nice time saver. All right. So, history. This is by far the most important takeaway from today's talk, is how to efficiently use your shell history. So we're going to talk about the very first way to do this, which is Control R. So if I do a Control R, you can see it starts a search. So I can type in something like pb client, and there we go. There's the command that we use to start one of our Ruby servers, kind of a longish command. And I know it's in my history, and I don't want to type it, but I remember part of the command, so I can just do a Control R and search for it. If I press Control R again, it'll go to the next match. So I think I've got one here so I'm on port 3002. So if I press R again, there's 3003. So you can keep going back through your history to other things that match. And you can see I've got a few things in my history here that are not the... Oh, I'm not going to be able to do that. That match the search, but are also different commands that match that search. So unfortunately, to go to the previous match, it's Control S. Now Control S for historical reasons is a key that's probably not going to work in a default shell. Now some shells are going to turn off this kind of legacy behavior for you, but I wouldn't bet on it. I would say most environments are not going to do it. So you have to run this kind of bizarre command to turn off these legacy features. It's basically for flow control, where in the really old days where you were connected to some remote terminal on some remote machine, and data was flowing over the network very, very slowly to you. You could buffer it. You could turn it off. You could start and stop it essentially with Control S and Control Q. So not something that we use today, but that mapping is still in place. So if you press Control S, it might actually freeze your terminal, and you'll have to press Control Q to get it back, unless you run this command here to just turn off that legacy feature. Anyway, so it's kind of an unfortunate default mapping. But we'll circle back to something else. Two other ones. These two exclamation points in a command will substitute the last command. So if I do this, pwd is the last command that I ran. So if I do a command, let's do who am I? All right. Now if I do that, that will run the command again for you. So you can see that's the command that it ran and that's the output. So this is a nice thing if you forget to sudo a command. And so you run it, it says, oh, you don't have permissions, you got to run this with sudo. So now you do sudo. Okay. Nice time saver there. And last but not least, this one here will substitute the last argument from the previous command. So that's a nice thing to do. So say like you are in your home directory and you're looking around and you take a look at some directory and you're like, oh, yep, that's the directory that I want. Now you can cd to that directory. So that's kind of a nice time saver as well. These get pretty crazy. These are just two of many possible substitutions. I honestly don't use the other ones very much because they're a little arcane and hard to type. Anyway, we're going to come back to history. So let's talk a little bit about completion. Completion is the best way to kind of make your way through an unknown file system. You're looking for a file in a directory. You're looking for program arguments, that kind of thing. Completion is by far the best way to do that. It works like you would expect. So, the key for that is tab to show the completion options. So, you hit tab. Sometimes you got to hit it more than once, depending on what your completion options are. Now, in a default bash shell, if you haven't customized anything, or if the system itself hasn't customized anything for you, then your completion is going to look like this. So you can see I had to hit tab twice for anything to show up at all. And every time I hit tab, it's just going to keep showing me the same thing that it showed me before. So say we do, right? You can see this is not working super great. Or at all. Did I break something? Yeah. So it's just going to keep printing a bunch of stuff to the screen over and over and over. And that's useful, but it's also noisy enough that it kind of becomes not useful. So that's the last thing I have to talk about today that doesn't involve writing some configuration, right? This is all kind of bash defaults. So from here on out, we should talk about how to configure your shell a little bit. And people go pretty crazy with this, like myself. You can go as crazy or as not crazy as you want. I'm going to kind of show you a minimal configuration that I think is kind of the needed baseline. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to customize a file called inputrc. And it lives in your home directory. And what this does is this configures a library called readline. Readline is what bash uses to map keys and do completions and stuff like that. But it's a library that bash uses. And a lot of other programs use it too, which is really nice, like IRB. So in IRB, if you've customized your inputrc file, IRB will just pick that up, and now you'll have all of the same completion and key bindings and that kind of a thing in IRB, as well as in bash. And just quick side note about your inputrc, you can put these interesting conditionals in here. So if you wanted to do something different for bash than you do for IRB, you can just wrap it in these conditionals. And if you do customize your inputrc and you find yourself working in, say, a shared server where you're not going to clobber the global inputrc for that user, and you just want to pull in your inputrc because, like me, you're a basket case without it and you can't get anything done, you can make your own instance of bash with your own custom inputrc. And I do this quite a bit when I'm working on a shared server and I don't want to trip up anybody else. And that's what I'm doing for today's demonstration to get rid of my default inputrc and put a blank dummy in place. So this is kind of the minimal that I think is useful. And I'll go over these step by step, and hopefully it won't be too boring. But basically, we want to switch tab to doing the default complete where it prints to the terminal every time to doing a menu completion. And let's while we're at it, let's add Shift Tab to do that, but backward. So what I've done here is I've got that import RC file here. At the moment, it's totally commented out, but if I uncomment this and restart Bash, we can start to see that things start to improve a little bit. So, for example, if I do, right, so now it's not printing everything to the screen every time. It's doing a kind of a menu completion. So right there, it's a bit of a win. This other one is turning this behavior where if you press the first tab, it'll complete to as far as it can. If you press tab again, it'll start cycling through your available options. And then these other two options show all of the available completion options right there without you having to press tab like I just did to see each and every one. So let's get those two. So now if I try to complete, all right, we've got the list. We can still go through as usual. So it's getting a little better. Let's keep going through. Let's see. This one's kind of a nice one for completing things mid-word. I won't go over it. This outputs some colors in the other completion. This one allows you to delete. Actually, let's show those two specifically. So. All right. So here's where we're at. My terminal is a little ugly with these colors, but there you can see that that there's some colors. It's showing directories with slashes, symlinks as these @ signs, and so we can kind of go through like that. And so, say like I'm completing something and I want to go back and I want to delete it. Well, we've already seen that we can do that with Control W. And that gets rid of everything, which is sometimes what we want, but not always. Sometimes we wanted to just go back to that last completion, which is where these other options come in here. So this says to treat any kind of symbols or punctuation as word delimiters. And this says that we're going to, by default, it looks for white space to determine what a word is. And so we're going to say we want it to be other things too. Punctuation, white space, and what am I missing? Yeah, that might be it. So if we turn that on, now as we're completing something, say Robin Hood, and we want to go back and we actually meant Serenity, now we can just hit Control W and it goes back one segment, which is a nice way to kind of get around the file system with completion, helping you out. Any questions about that? Okay. So last but not least are these last two. So we saw that we could initiate the history search with Control R. And that's nice. It's a nice to have, but it's a little cumbersome. First of all, we have to like initiate the search, and then we have to do the search, and then pull the results back. It would be a lot nicer if we could just automatically search the history for whatever we've typed in so far at any time. And that's where these completions come in. You don't have to choose Control P and Control N. By default, those completions are not super useful. Some people choose page up and page down. I like to keep everything just kind of on the home row. So with that in place, what we can do is we can do, say we know the command to start the Ruby server starts with PB, right? We don't remember any of the rest of it, but it starts with PB. Now we can press Control P and get it exactly. If I press Control P again, it goes to the next one, and the next one, and Control N to start cycling back through. Oops, I deleted it. So, so it lets us just immediately complete from our history at any time that we want. And the reason this is useful is chances are when you're at the shell, you're doing something over and over. So like when I was preparing the slides for this presentation, I was generating the PDF, and then moving the PDF into my presentation directory. So instead of typing that over and over and over again, I know the last move command that I wrote was that. So now I just Control P, right? There we go, presentation.pdf. And you can just scroll through all of the last move commands that you've done, or all of the last echo commands that you've done, right? So this is really, really useful because if you've got a long history file, you've got a lot of kind of built-in institutional knowledge for your specific workflow in that history file. And so you just type a few, the first few letters, hit that key, and you don't have to remember any of it ever again or type it in ever again. And not typing the same thing in over and over is one of the keys to real efficient shell usage. All right. So that's actually it for the core stuff. Like that's something I would recommend everybody do. There's a few extras which we'll breeze through since we're a little over time. You can also customize your bash RC. One of the reasons you might want to do this is because you want to set up, your prompt. So you want it to show your current working directory. Whoops. Okay, that's not going to work. You want it to show your current working directory, so let's see, bash rc. Maybe you wanted to do ps1. So you can see over here the default ps1 is it's showing the bash version, which is not something I particularly care about. So if we change that to what's on the slide here, these escape sequences say, show me the current working directory, show me a prompt, depending on if I'm a normal user or root, and that's it. So if we do that, right? So now if we cd around, you can see it's got the directory right there. And this is just kind of nice, especially as you're first getting started. Once you're accustomed to this, once you've got a really strong mental map of where you are in the file system, then this becomes a little extra noise, and you can start to dial it back. But it's kind of nice just to keep track of where you are, and you can put any other information that you care about in there, date, time, whatever, the host name of the system that you're on. But let's talk about Git. So if you've got Git installed, you probably have the files to customize your shell for Git also installed. So if you've installed Xcode, if you've installed Apple's lightweight command line tools, if you're running Homebrew, it's definitely installed. If you're on Linux, it's definitely installed. If you're on Windows, I don't know, but I'd be willing to make a bet that it was installed. So do a quick search, right? Find gitprompt.sh somewhere on your system. I had it installed 3 times because I have Xcode, the command line tools, and Homebrew installed. So it's probably going to be on your system. So find where it is on your system and add it to your bash RC, like this. So you source those files. We're going to customize our prompt. We're going to customize our completion so that we can complete Git commands. We're going to set a few environment variables to just say what parts of Git we're interested in. This one's me. I really appreciate having Git in my prompt, but I really, really love seeing the current SHA that I'm currently on, because if I rebase and I make a mistake and I want to get back to that SHA, it's just right there in my scroll back, and I can just copy and paste it and get back to where I was. And then finally, this command here. So this is going to override this PS1 command, but it's basically going to say, put Git information in your prompt with the current working directory and the prompt and the SHA. So now if I do that, and say I go into a Git directory, now I've got this extra Git information in my prompt. I've got the current SHA, I've got what branch I'm on, and I've got whether or not I've diverged from master or not. So this is a nice thing to be able to see at a glance. So say like I do a fetch. Let's see if Robinhood has anything new. It might not. Let's jump over to Serenity. Yeah. So with Serenity, you can see I'm on a branch that is ahead of master by 7 commits and behind master by 20 commits. And you can see the same information by doing a git status. Right? Ahead 7, behind 20. But it's nice to see at a glance. Now our branch names here can get a little long. You can definitely break your prompt across to multiple lines if you want. So Git stuff appears on one line, that kind of thing. You can get pretty crazy with multi-line prompts. So for example, here's Um, here's the prompt that I used to use way back in the day. Multi-line prompt, 3 lines. That little guy on the left-hand side is the dog from the game NetHack who just wanders around my prompt as I type. So you can get ridiculous, right? But having this at a glance is really nice. You do a fetch, and you know immediately if you have to merge or rebase or that kind of a thing without having to run git status every single time. It's just right there. You just know if you're in something else like say you So you stash something, it'll give you a little visual reminder of whether or not you've stashed something. So it's just kind of nice. That little plus there is telling you that you've got an uncommitted change or a staged change in the working repository. So again, it's just a nice way to not have to run git status over and over and over and over. And it's already installed on your computer, so you might as well. In addition to that, you can do git completion now. So if I do a git checkout and hit tab, it's going to, we've got a lot of branches in Serenity, but there you go. It's got all of the branches in Serenity, so I can start auto-completing on that. So, right. And again, it's using all of the existing menu completion that we've already set up. That's it. Thanks for coming. We're over time, so let's end it here. But if you have any questions or if there's things you want to explore or just talk about, hang out afterward and let's talk. Thanks.
Do you use eShell?
I do.
I feel a little weird. I don't want to spark like a huge conversation, but all of the functionality that you mentioned and all of the aliases and auto completions, those are great. But I got it just by installing Fish and GitRadar on top of it. Like to track all of the Git stuff, GitRadar is amazing and it works beautifully with the Fish.
Yeah.
Like all the stashes and everything. Any like vice versa? Why not? Is it good? Is it bad?
Fish is awesome. I know a lot of really smart programmers that love Fish. It's nice in that it configures everything out of the box for you. If you're only ever working on your laptop and you're comfortable working in Fish and getting to learn Fish as opposed to some other shell, that's great. Like any kind of shell that you dive into more than just the basics is going to be a significant time investment. I don't even know how many hundreds of hours I've wasted on Z shell. And Fish is going to be similar, slightly less because Fish does so much out of the box. But then, if you do work on your laptop and on a server, now you know Fish, but you don't quite know Bash, and so it's kind of a trade-off depending on what your workflow is. Anyway, I don't have anything mean to say about Fish. It's a cool shell, and it's going to have a lot built in. So, for example, the Git completion and the Git prompt stuff that we got straight out of the Git repository. It's nice in that it's already installed on your system, but it's not very customizable at all. You can basically turn features on and off, and that's it. You can't really customize it. I hacked in that SHA display, and it was just kind of a hack to get it in there. There's prompt systems like the one that you mentioned. Z-Shell has one built in called VCS Info that works across all of the version control systems, and that's built into Z-Shell, and that one is extremely granular. And built into Z-Shell, but if you're just doing a vanilla customization, like you're trying to do the most minimal stuff possible, this is already installed on your system. If you want to go the extra mile, Fish, Z-Shell, yeah, it's worth the time if you spend a lot of time in the shell.